Ooh, I've got a little something for you guys on Dallas Goedert. I've got a little bit of insight, and if you didn't know, over the weekend, Coltstradamus, who is yours truly, struck again. This past Saturday, I put out an episode, and I told you guys about a move that nobody was talking about, that the Colts would be interested in trading for a Dallas Goedert. So sure enough, I upload the episode, do the whole bit, go and make myself some food. And while the stuff's on the pan, I pull out my phone, and sure enough, like clockwork, what do I see? Rumors surrounding the Colts being interested in Dallas Goedert. It was so close to the release of the episode that it almost seems like perhaps I knew prior, but I promise you I did not. And I will never, ever, ever, one, lie to you, and two, never, ever miss an opportunity to take a victory lap. This is one of those moments. So, the origin of the report of the Colts getting Dallas Goedert was from a gentleman by the name of John Burchard, I believe is how you would pronounce his name, of the Watching the Birds podcast. And he claimed, I guess based off of whatever resources he had, perhaps he's a reporter, could have done a deeper dive on him, but nonetheless, he claimed the Colts were the most interested team in Dallas Goedert after the combine. So that was kind of what bubbled into what we saw in Colts Nation saying, hey, is Dallas Goedert an option for the Indianapolis Colts? So now fast forward to today. Not all that long after the Eagles signed former Colt Kylan Granson and my buddy Asif over at the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast, who, by the way, helped me put up all this stuff behind me and all that good stuff. So if you like the background that we have right now, go ahead to Asif's page and shoot him a little bit of a thank you. He texts me for some insight about Kylan Granson, asking me who he is as a player. Then I give that to him, and he couples it by saying he thinks the Eagles are not getting ready to trade Dallas Goedert, but getting ready to cut Dallas Goedert. And I said, oh my, really? Well, please, Asif, do tell. So, for those of you guys out of the loop, Dallas Goedert, tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles, is on the last year of his deal, $12 million on the books. The Eagles have been offloading contracts all offseason that they aren't looking to extend. They've signed two free agent tight ends in Harrison Bryant and, as I said, former Colt Kylan Granson. Shane Steichen coached in Philly, and Goedert was a pretty big piece of that offense. Well, okay, that right there was enough for me to piece those things together and say, hey, the Eagles, I think, are looking to trade Dallas Goedert, and the Colts may be a suitor. But now, here is where the insights come in. Here is why you are here and not listening to somebody else talk about the Colts, okay? I ask Asif, I say, brother, my brother in Christ, or whatever it is that we want to say, you, of course, entitled to whatever religious belief you'd like. Kind of a weird segue, but back to the topic. I said, Asif, why would they cut him? Like, why would they do that? He's on the last year of his deal. What exactly would be the point of cutting him when he's off the books at the end of the season anyway, okay? So he says he thinks that the Eagles may want the $12 million from Dallas Goedert's contract sooner rather than later, because he's thinking that they want to extend their young studs on the defensive line and the edge, and Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Nolan Smith. For those who don't know, Milton Williams, also a defensive tackle. And I promise you, I'm talking about the Eagles. This is all necessary context for what it is that I'm going to get to. Milton Williams, who is also an Eagle, signed for $20+ million in free agency to go to the New England Patriots this offseason. In part, that contract is the result of the cap increasing for teams. That type of thing ultimately inflates the market. So when you consider that and couple it with future cap increases, they have a young guy in Jalen Carter who may end up getting Chris Jones type of money, even if nobody would technically say he's quite the guy that Chris Jones is at defensive tackle. Again, due to the natural progression and inflation of the defensive line market. So Asif is looking at that and Howie Roseman's history, saying he feels confident the Eagles are going to try to get the extensions of those guys that I mentioned done early to get ahead of said inflating market and ultimately avoid a larger cap hit they would have to take on if they waited until those contracts were expired. This is apparently something that Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles have a track record of doing. They did it with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Landon Dickerson, Jalen Hurts, and that decision paid off for them as recently as yesterday when the Bengals extended Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Go take a look at the contracts of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who, much like A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, would be considered to be one of the best wide receiver pairings in football. Compare it to the extensions that the Philadelphia Eagles got done with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith last April, and you're going to see exactly why it is that Howie Roseman may be looking to do this. So if we as idiot fans are able to connect all of these dots for the Philadelphia Eagles as it relates to Dallas Goedert and his stay on the team, you have to figure general managers around the league who do this for a living are seeing the tea leaves as well, which does to some degree explain why a guy like Dallas Goedert, who's a high quality tight end, and that's a position that isn't exactly easy to come by, who's on the last year of his deal. I mean, it just seems like an ideal guy to trade for. It explains why he's yet to be dealt, despite him publicly being made available by the Philadelphia Eagles. Perhaps teams are looking and saying, hey, we know that you guys want to get rid of Dallas Goedert because you need to do these extensions. You signed 2 tight ends, and that is potentially removing any leverage that the Eagles have in a potential trade of Dallas Goedert. So as opposed to teams aggressively pursuing Dallas Goedert, teams may be looking and saying, hey, you're going to have to part ways with him either way. So you're either going to have to lower your asking price or you're just going to have to cut him outright because we're not going to pay what it is that he's worth because, quite frankly, you have no other choice but to dish him out to execute your plan anyway. So teams in the market perhaps playing a game of chicken with the Philadelphia Eagles to see who flinches first. So how about that for a little bit of insight? Let me one up it. Coltstradamus going to strike again. Based on the information that I just gave you, I officially predict for you that Dallas Goedert will be an Indianapolis Colts for either a 6th or 7th round pick or as a pickup after being cut by the Eagles outright. The Colts, the most natural fit for Dallas Goedert between the need for a tight end and, of course, Shane Steichen's presence, who coached Dallas Goedert in Philly. Now, of course, many Colts fans will say, no, we don't want Dallas Goedert. We want Tyler Warren at the number 14 overall pick. Well, for you guys, I will lay out the case as to why Goedert may be a good option for the Indianapolis Colts as opposed to Tyler Warren. And trust me, it has nothing to do with me disliking Tyler Warren's game. I'm simply presenting a discussion point for you guys. But before we do that, you know what it is? I got to introduce myself. My name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Colts podcast. As always, ask anyone watching and enjoying the show, go ahead, shoot it a like. It's going to help me get out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible. Of course, subscribe if you want to be a part of the journey. We're on our way to 4,000 subscribers over here on the YouTube channel. We want to get there by the start of next season. We're not all that close, but we have quite a bit of time. So perhaps if today's your first day here and you're enjoying what it is that you're listening to, you click that subscribe button, or perhaps you've been here many times and you haven't done it yet. Either way, no pressure whatsoever because I'm going to be sitting here talking about the Indianapolis Colts and nothing but the Indianapolis Colts for a very, very, very long time. What it is that we are doing over here has only just begun. If I told you my plans for the next 12 to 18 months of this show, you would say, Justin, you're absolutely out of your fucking mind. But that's neither here nor there. Audio listeners, leave a 5-star review. Let the people know how much you're enjoying the show. That's also going to help me grow the audio side of things, which is a side that's lacking as opposed to the YouTube community. But with all of that out of the way, let's get back to the regularly scheduled program. Why go Dallas Goedert as opposed to Tyler Warren? Now, one of the things I mentioned, but I will quickly just say again to make sure we're on the same page, the fit or familiarity that Dallas Goedert has with Shane Steichen, one of those reasons. But an even bigger reason number 1, let's call it, we don't know for sure that Tyler Warren is going to be at the 14th overall pick for the Indianapolis Colts. Doesn't some of the rhetoric, doesn't some of the conversation around Tyler Warren feel eerily similar to last offseason with a guy by the name of Brock Bowers? Best tight end in the class. Colts have a need at the position. Mock drafts saying that the Colts are the most likely scenario for Tyler Warren. Well, obviously, in hindsight, we know how that worked out. Bowers never made it to the Indianapolis Colts, meaning that if they had relied on the pick of a Brock Bowers, they would have been in trouble. And when you look at this year and the draft order, there's plenty of teams that could potentially be in the market for a Tyler Warren. Like, why not the Jaguars? Why not the Jets? Why not the Panthers? Why not the Bears? Like, those are just a few teams right off the bat. Hell, why not the Cowboys? I don't think the Cowboys will do it, but you get my point. There's quite a few teams above the Indianapolis Colts that can use a tight end. So that's reason number one, right off the bat, that you have to say, hey, perhaps the Colts would rather take the security of getting a Dallas Goedert now as opposed to having to wait for the first round of the draft to address the position. And number two, speak of that draft. This draft class is supposedly, I will admit I haven't watched the film in such a way to be able to say this myself, but according to people who are supposedly smarter than me, this is a deep tight end class. So, what if at number 14 the Colts wanted to go with the linebacker position? Like, what if they're looking at Jahad Campbell and Tyler Warren? Maybe they want to go with another edge rusher. They lost Dio and Dangbo. Laitu Latu still kind of coming into his own. And honestly, they probably could have done a little bit better of a job getting to the quarterback last year. Of course, Ebicom coming off the Achilles as well. Kwity Paye's contract expiring, as is Ebicom's at the end of next season. Maybe they want to kind of hedge against that and say, we're going edge rusher. Maybe they even want to get a damn corner even after signing Charvarius Ward, who, by the way, we got to talk about him a little bit more. I'm very excited about that signing. Hell, maybe the Colts even want to trade back from the number 14th overall pick. Well, with Goedert there on the roster, it allows them to do any of those choices and then invest into the tight end in the later rounds 2, 3, and 4, or perhaps even on the trade back in the first, as opposed to having the pressure to draft Tyler Warren right there when perhaps they feel they want to draft something else. Okay, reason number 3, the experience of a Dallas Goedert. And you may say this is an overblown thing, like how much does experience matter? And in fairness, there's a conversation to be had there for sure. Like, how much do you actually need a mentor at a position like tight end? Like, maybe you could either play that position or you can't. But in a world where experience matters, in a position where, quite frankly, players are notoriously slow at coming to their own in the NFL as tight ends, well, okay, the Colts have some young guys in the room in Jelani Woods and Will Mallory. Perhaps a Dallas Goedert can kind of show these guys the ropes a little bit, show them what it's like to prepare as a pro that's producing at a high level, and then show them what it looks like on Sunday to actually produce and see how is Dallas Goedert getting this done? Like, what is he doing, right? So these are all potential reasons that Dallas Goedert may be a better choice than a Tyler Warren. I'm not saying he is. The claim is that this is the case you can make for a Dallas Goedert instead. Hell, I'll throw one more out there. What if you get Dallas Goedert and draft Tyler Warren? I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but if you remember back in the day, New England, when their offense had two tight ends, and I know one of the, Aaron Hernandez, the whole bit, right? We understand. But man, do you remember how dynamic that offense was in that two tight end set with Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez? I mean, that was one of the most horrifying sets I've ever seen. I mean, to be 100% honest with you, a lot of people talk about that wide receiver position and having a dynamic duo at wide receiver. Well, man, if you have a dynamic duo at tight end, that's a position that not even everyone has one of. If you have two, I kind of like that, particularly when you take into account the skill set of an Anthony Richardson. A lot of people talk about Anthony Richardson and his inability to make accurate throws in levels 1 and 2. Like, we know he could dish that thing 60 yards down the field, but like, give us something from 20 yards and in, right? But if you watch the tape, and I encourage you to do so, one throw that we know Anthony Richardson can make at a very, very high level due to his arm strength and his height and perhaps just a natural feel for the throw, man, you get these tight ends on these seam routes over the middle. When you have Anthony Richardson making a throw inside of the hashes over the middle of the field, seam route, which is a tight end special, he is very, very, very accurate on that throw, and that is a big league throw. Like, that is not an easy throw to make. Not every guy in the league can make that throw. Well, you double up at tight end. Hell, Might be able to help Anthony Richardson a little bit out as well. But that right there was an episode about Dallas Goedert, an episode about a guy who is not a Colt yet, but will be a Colt at some point before the season starts. I promise you that. I have no source. I only have the information I've shared with you, but that is a prediction. And I am telling you what it is that I know to be true. But until next time, that was an episode. My name is Justin. This right here was the Ride the Bench Colts podcast. Like, subscribe if you have not yet. And as always, bing, bing, bing. Go Colts.